Hey, what's going on, my friends? Today you are tuning into podcast episode number 7 with my friend Matt Drouin. Matt is a local investor right here from Rochester, New York. Now, Matt and I have got to know each other. Actually, we started a local coffee club group where we just met and started networking. Now, if you haven't joined this group, go on Facebook today and join us, the RE Coffee Club group. There's a tremendous amount of value. You're going to want to take advantage of that right away. But don't miss this episode, you guys. We're diving deep into how Matt got started. We're going to dive into some mindset things and how actually achieving his goals led to a deep depression and how he turned that depression around into something positive where he's actually making a significant impact on the community right here in Rochester, New York. I love Matt. He's awesome. He has a heart to give and a heart to serve, and he's in a position where he can do that, and he is using it to his utmost potential. Don't miss this episode, you guys. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Flip for Freedom Show, presenting you with the best tips, tricks, and strategies that'll help you be successful in business without sacrificing life. Featuring powerful stories and insights from successful investors in both national and local markets, you'll get a clear look into the processes and mindsets that drive personal and professional achievement. True success starts with the right framework, and we want to help you build it. Now, let's get started with your host, Brett Iwanowitz.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to episode number 5 today. We have Matt Drouin on the show. So, Matt, thanks for coming on today. Really appreciate the opportunity to get to pick the brain of one of Rochester's geniuses of commercial real estate investing.
Oh, a genius. So I still think I'm a huge idiot. My wife would agree, of course. So, but thank you for the flattering words, of course, and having me for your guest.
Yeah, you got it. So this is going to be a cool episode because Matt and I think we tend to have some deeper conversations, like mindset, goal setting, and things like that. And Matt's the type of guy that if you were to complain to him and just be like, man, I want to do this, he'd just tell you to go off and do it. which I love about you, man. But yeah, our listeners are probably wondering how you got started in real estate. So let's just start there. I know you moved from residential to commercial. So just share with us a little bit about where your journey began.
My journey began in real estate, and as a person, kind of by accident. I was a very directionless individual, not very motivated. I basically went to college just because it was like what all my friends were doing. I was kind of a follower, right? So it's like, what's the cool thing to do? What is going to make me feel more accepted amongst my peers? I grew up in an affluent white suburb on Pittsford, New York, and my family was blue collar, living in a house they could not really not afford. So they were living like paycheck to paycheck. And, I didn't have the nice car. I didn't have the nice clothes and stuff like that. So I kind of emerged from college with no direction whatsoever. So, but I started out at a job that I hated. I had a college degree, and the only job I could find was as a bank teller at Chase Bank in the village of Pittsford. It was awesome seeing my classmates that, had graduated from like Northwestern University and stuff like that. And I was working as a part-time bank teller with a job at a liquor store to make ends meet in addition to that. So where it really came to me was it was that hate for that job that basically made me bitch a lot to my dad about it. And then he was kind of had that, smack me upside the head type of thing that I kind of have with conversations with other people. He's like, listen, like, I don't want to hear you bitch about it. If you hate this job, quit, get your real estate license. You can work under me. He was a realtor at the time, building his business at the time. And so he's like, I'll show you the ropes. I'm not going to give you any business though. I'll show you how to do it. You're going to take the action. I'm not going to give you any free lunch. I'm not going to give you any of my clients because I need those clients for my own income. He was like decades behind in terms of saving for retirement just because he wasted a lot of time in his life. Just in terms of being married so many times. My dad was married like 4 times. That will set you back financially.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
So.
So So that's kind of how I got started. I was a horrible realtor starting out, didn't know how to prospect. I was very timid. I was, great with, maintaining relationships with friends, but not in terms of building new relationships and that sort of thing, and had a lot of insecurities about that. So this part-time liquor store job really, kept me afloat. I was living at home. I was saving money, and I was able to like save up about 16 to 17,000 bucks. And my dad basically kicked me, he gave me like a timeline to move out of the house. He's like, you cannot be a realtor and live with your parents. Like, number one, like that's embarrassing. And it doesn't lend you any credibility when it comes to being the advisor on, but, making the biggest financial purchase of your life. Right. So he gave me a timeline. Is you can get an apartment with your friends, or you can buy a multifamily house. That's what I would do. And so that's kind of, set those motions in action. So I bought my first 4-family, owner occupied one of the units. I moved up to the attic because this apartment that I took like had some attic space up there. And I was just like, I'll live in whatever. I lived in multiple basements in my life when my dad was in and out of marriages. So, and like, girlfriends and stuff like that. So I'll live in an attic. It's better than the basement, I guess. So I moved in there. I was like basically making $200 a month while living rent free. The magic really set into motion. It's like when I closed on that property and 2 weeks later, I checked my mailbox and there was $1,800 in rent checks there. And I knew how hard I had to work as a real estate agent in order to earn $1,800 in income. And that's when I knew I was onto something. So I sort of like amalgamated, that with, the amount of, pain and suffering I went through as a child, kind of with my parents being, divorced and multiple marriages and, always being financially strapped. And I kind of used that to, chart out a new like financial plan for myself. And I was going to do that through real estate by buying like 2 and 3, 4 family houses until the cows came home. In order to retire.
I want to pump the brakes real quick there, Matt, because I want to go into the your dad how did you feel when he was so direct with you? Like, was that encouraging to you, or were you upset with that response? It seems like a very pivotal moment right there where you had to make a decision just to suck it up and just to work hard. I mean, want to talk about that a little bit, how you dealt with that? It seems, because I feel like that would have been a difficult conversation to have at the time.
Believe me, I was a timid person, so I was looking for any direction in my life. If it came across as like a slap across the face by my dad, I welcomed it. I was not a stubborn or strong-willed individual. I was very impressionable. I'm still really impressionable as a person. So, that's why like I avoid like, going to seminars and that sort of thing, because I'm going to get jazzed up and like buy whatever that bullshit product is going to be at there. So no, I've definitely taken it really, really well. I know some other people like, my brother, for instance, is like very, very strong-willed, very stubborn. If you tell him something direct like that, like he's going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm right. And that sort of thing. With myself, I was just sort of like, just please tell me what to do. So that's kind of how I took it.
So do you think that you said timidity, but I'm kind of just maybe hearing like humility could be another word interchangeably, right? Because you have to humble yourself, say, hey, I don't know everything, so I'm just going to take your word for it and listen and try to figure it out along the way.
Yeah, I still, I don't know. I think I was still like I wouldn't call it humility. I think it was more like, I think it may have been a little bit of humility, but I think that I still had like a massive ego from the standpoint of I wanted to do a lot to protect my ego. So I think that is kind of a combination of that. But at that point in time in my life, I was a complicated individual, and I was still seeking acceptance from people that weren't necessarily interested in my well-being. But my dad, I held him as like, this guy like definitely has a vested interest in myself.
Mm.
Like there's really no moral hazard in the relationship or anything like that. So, so I definitely took what he said, like as, as gospel.
And how did you, man, it seems like, so you were working as an agent and you still kept that job at the liquor store, right? And you saved up, you said almost $17,000, which is awesome.
Mhm.
What did you do to celebrate the day you collected that $1,800 in the mail?
Maybe I went to O'Callahan's on Monroe Avenue. I don't know. I was and am relatively a frugal person. My lifestyle has grown throughout the years as like my wealth has. But I think I just kind of like celebrated in my head that I was like, there was this one thing that I was so afraid of that it was just a lot more like, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, which is like,
Mm.
most of what, we go through in life in terms of new things always seem like infinitely harder than they really are. Not to say that like, worthwhile things are easy, but they're just easier because you create all these like roadblocks in your mind, these limiting beliefs to prevent you from taking action. And I think that, yeah, it was a celebration in my head, and then probably maybe like,
Awesome.
some beers over, down at O'Callahan's.
So how did you find that first house? Like what led you up to just saying, okay, you had to put a plan together, right? You had to get your mindset right. So I have to save X amount of money. This is the type of property I want to live in. This is where I want to live. And then you had to figure out how you're going to find that home. So what did that process look like?
Um, my dad told me, buy where you want to live. Okay. So that's like, that was the number one rule, right? And I didn't save that 16 to 17,000 bucks because like I had this like master plan of like, oh, this is the exact amount I need. This is how much like I'm going to have to put out this amount per month and that
Mhm.
sort of thing. I didn't have any of that. I didn't have a plan. It was basically, I didn't want to I never paid rent in my life. I didn't want to pay rent to a landlord, but just because it was just the thought process of it was painful to me. So I was just like, what can I buy with 17,000 bucks? And it wasn't much in Park Avenue. That was where the house was. So, and a lot of the numbers didn't work. So I found this house it was an expired listing that was
Mm.
sale pending before it expired. It expired, sent out a little love note to the property owner, and then they called me and they said, yeah, we're still interested in selling it. So that's how I found that deal.
Dude, that's incredible. My second duplex that I bought, um, there was a sale pending too. And this was one in the South Wedge. And then I still put my best foot forward and that deal ended up falling through. And that's a property that I now have like $90,000 worth of equity in. So that's awesome. So for you guys
Mhm.
listening out there, man, you got to take that first step if you're looking for a deal and at least make an effort, even if it's writing a contract, if an offer is pending and the numbers work for you, because deals fall through. So that's great advice. Appreciate it. All right. So first duplex. Now, if you guys know Matt, I'll try to shed a little context on him. So Matt has moved into some commercial acquisitions. So share with us, I guess, the story of like your residential, possibly, the mindset shift of like, all right, well, I can double or even 10x my income by going from residential to commercial. Like when and how did that happen?
So throughout my career, I started learning about what I liked and didn't like about business. I hated transactional business. I wasn't, like I said before, I was not good at prospecting. I was not good at cold calling, anything like that. But when I got in front of somebody, I knew that I could like create a solid relationship. I took a genuine interest in that person, and built trust with that, and relationships that just pay dividends and dividends and dividends. It's just when a relationship based business is so much easier than a transactional based business. I was finding that like I said, I was going to have to, buy, in order to be financially independent by the time I turned 40, which I'm 36 now, I was going to have to buy a ton of, 2 family, 3 family, 4 family properties. And it was just going to take a really, really long time and a lot of this grinding transactional stuff in terms of like chasing all of the stuff that other investors were looking for. I guess where the kind of the light bulb turned on in my head was there was a mixed use building that was in the North Winton Village neighborhood. And it was of interest to me. It had 4 apartments, had 2 commercial storefronts, and no other investors wanted to touch this thing because it had commercial in it. It's like, what if the store goes, what if the storefront goes vacant? Like, I've heard these things can go vacant for like 6 months, 12 months, 5 years. And I started to learn, like, I was like, all right, well, I worked for a real estate development company, and I know that if a space is marketed properly, that you can lease it up pretty quickly. And plus, like, tenant does most of the work and commercial stuff. So, and you have a longer term tenant, there's less turnover, less cost associated with that. So I kind of found like a competitive advantage with that. So that was my first commercial property, small one, but first one. And I was like, I need to go after like bigger stuff, because I don't want to do like, one deal a month, like to basically like achieve my financial goal of being financially independent. Like, I want to just do one deal a year. That's it.
Yeah.
Like one deal a year. So that's kind of how I got into like larger stuff and looking at larger stuff. And that market is dominated by commercial brokers, which is like 100% relationship-based business. Commercial property by brokers is not marketed the same way as you see with properties in the MLS. Like, when they have a listing opportunity, they will bring it to their A list first. The A list is the people they like to work with, that they've closed deals with, and that that are just a delight to work with. People that do what they say they're going to do. Their B list is basically somebody that they like. They've never done a business deal with them. Their C list is like the people that are kind of a pain in the ass to work with, and so on and so forth. And you go down to there, and then, they'll post the property on LoopNet after they've exhausted all the resources. So anyways, I got a lead from a broker for a commercial office building in the neighborhood of the Arts. It was the property was listed the asking price was $1 million. Believe me, seeing those 7, digits was like,
Yeah.
I've done 6-figure transactions, never done $1 million transaction. So, but I knew that it was in the right location. It had parking. It was 100% occupied. So I knew that there was rents that were below market value in the property. So that was my first time. And it was like, I had to put together $300,000 in order to buy this property. So I was able to get those from people that I had partnered with before for as investment partners, silent partners. And so when I took down that property, I was like, I'm not going to buy anything that is below, potential of creating $200,000 a year in gross rent or less. Like, I want to go, above that, because I knew that property, that's going to pay for my daughter's college education, just that one deal. Okay. So if you think about it that way, and how many properties you'd have to flip, and how many, buy and holds you have to do on the smaller end of the scale, and the grinding and, refinances and all that stuff is just exhausting to me. So that's where I've really found my niche in commercial, and also just loved its transformative impact on the communities around it. And also, I love working with business owners. It's just more of a relationship-based business. When you're working with a commercial tenant, it feels more like a partnership, less like, not as much confrontational type relationship you have with residential tenants. So that's how I kind of graduated into commercial.
That's awesome, man. The whole thing I've been thinking in my mind right now. I want to know what Matt's definition of, you don't have to give us numbers, but your definition of you said financially independent. Is that what you said? Like, how do you define that in your life?
So it's basically not needing to work anymore. So the only reason you need to work is just from a personal desire to. So since I was able to become financially independent at the age of 33, much, credit to my commercial property investments, I've been able to really focus on things that I'm passionate about. I used to volunteer a ton when I was in high school and college, and I wanted to get back into that because that is what gave me joy, helping people, helping people out. Whether it's through physical, like manual labor, or whether it's through donating to causes I believe in, or whether it's to lending my like professional expertise towards those things. So I just didn't want to be tied to like, I need to do this deal or I need to make this sale in order to live.
Yeah.
I wanted to get above that. So that number basically was, I just reverse engineered what, basically what our lifestyle was, and what was required to live very comfortably and never ever have money as a reason to not do something. So, and also I had lived like way below my means for so long, and I hadn't allowed lifestyle creep, as Brandon Turner with Bigger Pockets would describe, to take my focus like off of, what brings me joy. So, so that's kind of how I did, put that together. Cause at the end of the day, like if I'm thinking about buying something, the first thing I ask to myself is like, do I really need it? Is buying this thing going to give, am I going to get better friends out of owning this thing? And usually it's not. So, so I definitely put off those things, and therefore, like, my wife buys all of my clothes. Like, I wear like socks until like they're just turning to dust. You know what I mean? So, so I think that, and I love Warren Buffett's swagger as a billionaire, in that he is just like, he's driven the same, like, baby blue, like Oldsmobile Cutlass or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I just think that I love being just a sleeper. I've used to love being about cars and that sort of thing. And so I always loved like the car that looked like it was like a little 4-cylinder, but it had like a 500 horsepower, engine behind it.
That's awesome, man. I've been listening to this podcast and I can't remember who the host is, but he interviews billionaires. And it's always interesting to find that there's similarities, and that's one of them is frugality. And the second thing that I've recognized in these podcasts is the why behind the frugality. It's always about, at least the interviews I've heard so far, they've been about the why is serving and is adding value to other people. So I really appreciate that. That's important in your life, because I firmly believe that, like, I don't know if it was Zig Ziglar said it, but if you want to make $1 million, just help 1 million people, so that you can position yourself to do the things that you love, to know what you want in life, and to say no to more money, and to say yes to relational things. And the crazy part is, when you do say yes to relational things, like the money is just a byproduct. Then that's how people become billionaires. It blows my mind. Really different mindset. So there was one thing that I remember talking to you about, Matt, and I think it was you, where there was some pivotal moment in your life, right? Where you had like this redefining moment where you reached that success and you found yourself unhappy, right? That was, I hope that was with you.
Oh yeah.
So, and I think that's where you kind of started looking into serving and getting back to your roots of what you love. But I think that's a really an important conversation to talk about, because look at the truth is, like, you and I both know that money doesn't make us happy. So what did that look like when you reached success and then you realized it wasn't all you thought it would be, as far as on a balance sheet?
Yeah, when I had looked and realized that I didn't really need to work anymore. I didn't need to work as a broker. I didn't need to chase down any other deals. All I needed to do was just basically, sit back on my laurels. That was when I, entered into a bout of depression, because I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What is my new purpose? Because this purpose was something I thought about every single day. And the fuel that I used to think about it was my parents and the life they had to sacrifice, dying in my 20s. I just used this day in and day after. It was like my mantra, right? to, push myself forward into uncomfortable situations, taking risks, all that stuff. So it was really tough. And I needed to go through the painful process of reinventing myself into what my new purpose was going to be. So the book that I read at that time um, was the one thing, and then also the 10x rule, which were amazing self-help books for me. And the main tenet of the 10x rule is Grant Cardone, who's the author, understands that people are going to, if they set their goals too low, they're going to hit those life goals like way sooner than they thought they were going to. And they're going to be, up against this wall. And that's why you see a lot of people that achieve material success end up falling into, drug addiction, self-destructive behavior. I mean, George Eastman, for instance, he killed himself. Okay. This, so you just, so, I mean, that book was basically like lit a fire into discovering what my new purpose was going to be. And so that was when I sort of pivoted and I was like, okay, well, I focused on, building my, real estate, quote unquote, empire. So what can I do next? And, what gave me the joy was using the real estate as a way to, create positive social impact in our community. I saw how, developers had, that are motivated by money, like don't really have the patience to do what's best for a community. So I took it incumbent upon myself to use my business to create positive social impact, and then also to use my time to give back to other people to help them build wealth for themselves, build generational wealth in our community as well. So and I think that the end goal is to build a net worth of $20 million to set up a impact investing oriented family office, so that we can invest $1 million a year long after I'm dead into the local community through, private real estate mortgages, real estate equity, startup companies, stuff like that. So we can have a lasting legacy to leave on this community after I pass.
Dude, that is freaking awesome. That's the first time I heard of the legacy you want to leave. So that's really exciting. How do you go from being a bank teller to being a real estate broker to wanting to set up a $20 million firm that funds small businesses and holds mortgages and makes an impact on the community? Like, who helped? Was it just a mindset shift for you, or like who are the people that kind of helped you along the way to get there?
Of course, I'm in debt to my parents. My dad kind of gave me that entrepreneurial driving force that, never takes no for an answer. He was like your like typical, just type A personality salesman. My mother was more of like the, compassionate, curious person that just really took an interest in people. She was a dialysis nurse. So, I mean, if you're talking about like working with dialysis patients, it requires an incredible amount of patience. So I kind of took both of those qualities, and the people that I relied upon to basically help manifest those things into reality that I wanted is, people that I don't even know. I mean, there's, Warren Buffett and Grant Cardone and Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, all these people that I've read their books, people that I have like quote unquote relationships with, like through podcasts and stuff like that. So I haven't had any like access to some guru or person that's going to do it. I just kind of realized that if I want something, I can figure out how to do it. I know the people that I can like, lean on a little bit for, as an advisor, I guess. So, and the rest has been pretty accessible. I really haven't had any like major advantage, besides like, growing up in a loving household, although tumultuous at times. So, I don't even know what we're talking about. So
Mentors. People that made an impact on your life. Sorry,
okay.
my mind goes blank like that sometimes too. Yeah, so just I think it's important to recognize here that like if you're looking for a mentor, you can just pick up a book.
Hmm.
I mean, that's, I hear excuses all the time. Well, I want a mentor. I need a mentor. It's like, okay, well, there's plenty of mentors you can find at the library. Um,
Hmm.
I will have to admit that it does make a big difference. And I think this is maybe why you gravitated towards commercial, because it does help to have, we'll call it an advisor, where you have an idea, and you can just walk. Typically, like, we know the answers to what we want to do, but we just need to have someone hear what's going on in our mind and just walk us through that process.
Hmm.
Um, so you mentioned advisors. Are those just people that you've met, like, that are other investors or other brokers, or who are those people that you look up to maybe have those conversations with?
Yeah, those people are other developers, other investors. We have a really, really supportive real estate community in Rochester across the entire spectrum, from people that are, grinding out there flipping houses to, developers that are doing, 10, 20, 30, $40 million development deals.
Mm.
And I found that, when you are, when you're know what you're when you know what to ask, and you're not saying like hold my hand and that sort of thing, you've taken the opportunity to, like, research kind of the groundwork as to what you're asking, and then being very direct with that person. That I have people that will call me, and, out of the blue, haven't talked to them in a couple of years, and they go on this sort of like, hey Matt, how's the kids, how's the family, how are things in your business, and that sort of thing. And they're just doing this sort of like conversation foreplay, because they're going to get to asking me
Yep.
what they really called me about. I was like, well, I'd appreciate it if you just got directly to the question that you're going to have, and then maybe, make some small talk with me later.
Yeah.
And I think that people that are successful, ones that are like successful way beyond yours and my imagination, like, are very, very understanding of how valuable their time is.
Yep.
So you want to value their time too. And you don't want to be asking them like kind of like the groundwork type of stuff, like the basic stuff. You kind of want to be already educated on something before you do it. So I think that that's kind of like what my key to, having great advisors and stuff like that. And I'm like I become a total cowboy in terms of, jumping into things, and just, I find that if I jump into something, like, I'm going to figure it out rather than trying
Yeah.
to figure it all out ahead of time. Cause when I'm in it, when I'm committed, it's like, you're in the ring, like, you got to fight,
Yep.
like, there's no way out of it. Right. Um, so I think that that's kind of like, and yeah, brokers are really, really awesome. And then other investors are just like you can find so much information out, about stuff just by leaning on, people in your investment community.
That's some great advice. Yeah, I would prefer if people were just direct with me too. And one of the things that I read recently is, like, you know, I guess we could say, quote unquote, the successful people, their time is valuable. However, they're more than happy to lend their time if you use it correctly. And they're looking, if you have questions, they'll answer your questions. So just be careful to value their time and to do it in a way where you're kind of not overstepping. But I would suggest, like, I've been reaching out to a lot of people lately. And before, I would have just created some story that was untrue, like, oh, they don't have the time, or they're not going to listen to me, or why would they want to talk to someone like me? I'm not as successful as they are. But those people will spend the time with you. Just value it, and don't waste it. And the way to not waste it is to be out there taking action, and not just asking them questions and doing nothing with it. Like Matt said, you have to be an action taker. So be doing something. And if they see that, they'll continue to invest in you. So definitely take note of that. How do you
Yeah,
get on the
get your teeth kicked in, get your
get your
throat stomped
teeth
out a little
kicked
bit,
in?
then come talk to me.
Yeah, go squat with Matt, or bench press with him. He'll kick your teeth in, right? How do you get on the 18? Like, how does that happen? And we said there's brokers. The deals go from A, B, C, and then they get listed on some broker sites. So this
Mhm.
is very relational. So what did you have to do to cultivate those relationships to actually get on the A team? Was it part action, part giving, or what does that look like for people who maybe wanting to get into commercial and cultivate some relationships? What are some steps that they can take to position themselves to get a deal?
Uh, it's you're not going to get on the A list right away with brokers. That's going to take doing deals with them, building your reputation, and then just paying attention to the small things in terms of like doing what you say you're going to do. If you contact a broker on LoopNet, for instance, which is like the biggest website for posting commercial properties for sale, and the broker sends you what's called an offering memorandum, and then you tell them, hey, I'm going to review this, I'm going to get back to you in a couple of days, and then you don't get back to them in a couple of days, and weeks go by, and you're just like, it wasn't interesting, so I'm not going to get back to feedback. It's not important. It is important. Like, I'm a commercial broker myself. Like, I take like mental note of that. And, do you show up on time? Like, it's all this stuff like that is like the small things add up. But, having, the banking relationships too, brokers can ask you, how are you financing this deal? If you have the relationship with the actual lender, if that is a good lender, that broker is going to know that person on a first name basis. So that's definitely very important, because we know that banking runs it really runs the show with these larger deals. People just don't buy $1 million property 100% in cash. Like, they use 80% to 75% of it with a loan. Those are just some of the things that can point to get on that in the good graces in terms of being top of mind with that broker. The other thing too is just getting involved with, leveraging your social media presence to put really good educational, value-driven content out there has really helped me. I don't post, or at least try not to post to look like, hey, look at me, I'm really cool. Like, look what I'm doing. I try to always have something educational or positive around it, something that's going to create some value, so that I can keep, I'm, friends on social media with a lot of real estate brokers and a lot of lenders. So keeping that top of mind also helps too, even if you're not at on the A list, they may think of you to send you a deal if it comes across their desk.
For sure, man. I think a lot of people who are listening to this right now are wondering, like, I think, well, from what we know, the biggest limiting belief for people to get started in real estate is probably the money part. So one of the things you mentioned is one of the buildings you purchased, you had to come up with around $300,000. So what would you say to those people who are like, oh, I don't have the money, or I don't know how to do that? How did you just find 300 grand out of the blue to fund one of your deals?
The one thing is that when you're asking for money, I mean, I know you do this all the time. You're not asking for money. You're presenting an opportunity to a investor. And that's the number one thing to get around. And also to have your basically your executive summary very, very concise and to the point, and your business plan for what you're going to do to that property. I always start out, when I offer an opportunity to investors, the first thing I state is how they're, the amount of money that we need, and then how they're getting paid back. Okay. I don't go through the amount of money I need and then go through all of the flowery description of like, all right, this is the property, this is what we're going to do to it, and blah, blah, blah. Like, that person that that is successful enough to generate that amount of, liquid assets to put several $100,000 into your deal. Again, they are very, very conscious of their time. And so while they're reading this whole thing, they'll be like, how is this motherfucker going to pay me back? Right. Yeah. So, and, not paying attention to your business plan. So, I do that. And then also, for those, starting out, like, hard money lenders can be converted into equity partners on your future deals. So when you're starting out, build those relationships with those hard money lenders, because, who knows, like, they may not, they may be willing to lend you $100,000 on a single family investment property, but they're not willing to, invest $100,000 with you to partner on taking down a larger commercial deal. But if they've, done multiple deals with you before, you have a great reputation, you perform, you pay when they, when you pay them, it's like clockwork, like they don't even have to think about getting paid by you, then they're more apt to partner with you on a investment opportunity. So that's, definitely key there, is that sometimes, you're not going to raise $300,000 on your first investment property deal. Like nobody's going to, put their hard-earned money in harm's way with a rookie or an amateur.
So how do you get that first deal in order to build credibility to raise money or syndicate deals? That's another way to, I mean, that's essentially the same thing, right? You're bringing multiple people in to syndicate to get the money to fund a large investment. But I mean, how do we get this first deal under our belt to build credibility? Like what kind of properties are we looking for to do that?
I would say anything that you can, I mean, I'm going to say this, like, I know there's no money down, like type of things out there for your first deal. Like you're going to want to do it on your own, like, cause you want to have, like, one thing is that you want to be able to prove to yourself that you can actually save money, that you're a steward of your money, and that you are, you can, you're not blowing it all on, on stupid stuff, and you have the capacity to earn income and put it away. Secondly, I just believe somebody should put themselves in harm's way before they put somebody else in harm's way. And then and that first deal in terms of credibility builder can be anything. It can be single family, it could be multifamily, whatever. There's people that go back and forth. Do I do single family? Do I do multifamily? Do I do a flip, or do I do a wholesale? Just do a damn deal. Okay. Because I know people that have been talking about doing their first deal for like 10, 15 years, right? It's insane. So I think that, you do need to have I just believe, like, ethically, you do need to have some, like, experience to be asking for, for that type of money. I do think that, and this is the thing, is that if you have an opportunity, like, you'll find the money if it's a real opportunity, but it takes experience to spot, like, an actual real opportunity. So, I mean, so for instance, like, there's a young guy I'm partnering with on, he's buying his first deal as an opportunity he brought to me. He wants to own $1 million in real estate assets in his life. So, so I agreed he brought me the opportunity. I was like, all right, I'll bring the funding to it. I'll bring the expertise to it, and we'll split the equity 50-50. And so he's able to, like, sidestep a lot more mines, like, in the minefield, than he would if he was doing it on his own. I imagine if he would have gone to, like, it's a really, really great deal. I mean, I think we're buying it for $50,000. Needs about $20,000 in rehab, and the back end it's worth between $130,000 and $140,000 all day long. So, so it's definitely, like, a really, really great, really, really great deal. So, so I think that, networking and, potentially partnering with a more seasoned investor, but there's people out there I know, like myself, they're going to do whatever they want no matter what. And I applaud you for that. Like, don't listen to me and Brett. Like, if you're really, really strong-willed and stubborn, like, just do it. The people that look like idiots and just take action, like, they're way far more ahead than those who haven't taken action. So it's, that's why they call real estate the idiot's business. Like, it's, an idiot can do it. You see how many idiots out there that are real estate investors, just like myself, that are, that have made a empire with this thing. So,
dude, I think I mean, I completely agree with you there. I wish I'd have known years ago that I could just find someone like you. Obviously there's an understanding that this person is going all in, that there's a relationship that you've already cultivated there for you to trust this to go beyond this deal to maybe $100 million or $1 million in real estate holdings. But yeah, I've wasted so much time. I would have rather given up, 60, even 70% of an equity just to pick someone's brain to show me the ropes, because the whole goal is like, let's pretend this person, you're preventing them from making the mistakes that maybe you have made or I've made along the way, and they're getting kind of like a joyride. And you're kind of the personal advisor to get these deals done, and they're just going out there and doing the legwork. I'll give up equity all day for or would have and when I was younger to do some deals like that, because I think the biggest thing for people getting started is just their confidence, trust, mindset. So, and the money thing too. So that person does not need to rely on those things. Like, you're taking care of all that. They're just doing the legwork, and they learn along the way. So that's a huge win for whoever that guy is. Huge
Yeah,
win.
it's like getting paid. It's like getting paid to go to school. Like, you're
Yeah.
like my college never wrote me a check. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
um, so yeah, I mean, you're 100%, 100% right with that. And the thing is that, like, what people have to understand is that, like, the mistakes we talk about, they're not like fun little mistakes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they are really painful mistakes. Like, they've kept us up at night. They've, like, so to be able to lean on somebody else that has been through that to sidestep a lot of that stuff, is incredibly valuable, not only to your, like, pocketbook, but also to your mental health as well.
Yeah, man, I think I've made decisions that have set me back sometimes up to a year. And they were good lessons to learn, but had I had someone like working with me on what I really wanted, I would have never went down that road to begin with. So yeah, climbing out of financial holes for and making decisions that maybe weren't in your best interest at the time can be prevented by working with someone who can actually help you figure out what you want too. Um,
Mhm.
but that's awesome, Matt. So what's the next like 5 years look like for you? I don't know if I mean that's a little far up, but like, what are some maybe some community projects that you're working on that you can share with us? Um, there are some ideas that are going on in that brain of yours.
So from a business standpoint, it's our goal to grow to 1 million square feet under ownership and management with our development company. So there's definitely a lot of work involved with identifying opportunities. Right now, it's like this year is the first time I've bought like 2 fully vacant commercial properties. So there's a huge learning curve with that too. There's a lot of stuff I don't even know,
Mm.
that I'm going through and furthering my career in education. And hopefully, I don't pay a ton of tuition in the process. But yeah, I want to do more with, like, just vacant, underutilized buildings. That's just kind of like one of my career goals, because I've always admired, that vacant, blighted property that's just been vacant for decades, and developer that's, gone in there, find a higher and better use for it. One building can change an entire neighborhood in terms of,
Mm.
the way that people, their outlook is on that neighborhood that live in there, and the people that live outside the neighborhood. Um, so just doing more projects like that, 1 million square feet under ownership and management in 5 years. On this social side of things, I am, looking to formalize a platform for education that, like you and I were talking about earlier today, that people are getting to, like, looking to get started. I can just give them a link to a full, like, multi module, like, just series for free, and just be like, hey, this is what you need to do. And it kind of, like, can help them that way. And then also finding more minority investors that want to become millionaire real estate investors too. is people that I'd like to basically bring up through the ranks and put the ladder down for them too. So that's kind of what I'm looking to do over the next 5 years.
That's awesome, man. And how can after this call, I'm gonna have to go back through my vision and step up my game a little bit. You're making me work hard here. How can people get a hold of you, Matt? If they, again, guys, like everyone's time is valuable. So if you are going to reach out to Matt, I would definitely suggest like doing it in a way where you can respect his time. But how can people get a hold of you socially? Maybe through Facebook, or is email better? Or what are some ways that people can just get some information on maybe some investing in some commercial buildings? Or maybe they even have a deal that they know is for sale or building in their neighborhood, where this would be a huge opportunity here to bring to Matt, because Matt will partner with you if there's an opportunity there, and make you part of that project, and really invest in you in ways that I haven't seen from a lot of people. So it's an opportunity, if that's the case, you would not want to pass up.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the best way to get an introduction is through, number one, following me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at Matt M. Drouin. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. And then sort of like, do some research on me and see what I've been involved with, and then send me an email. My email address is matt@oakgrovecompanies.com. That's matt@oakgrovecompanies.com. Just with an introduction as to like, where you're at, where you want to go, some things you might be frustrated with that are sort of bottlenecks that might be standing in your way. And those types of things. I'd be happy to get on a phone call with you or meet with you once we get out of the orange COVID zone, of course.
Hopefully soon. And I'll share all the links to Matt's contacts for you guys when I post this podcast. So if you're watching this, they're below in the comment section. You guys can reach out to them and say hello. Man, thanks so much for spending this hour with me, Matt. I think there's a lot of information here that people can take and use. It's a blessing to have you in Rochester. I think from the first time I met you, it was we got together to you brought up the idea of starting the coffee club, which was an awesome idea. But just getting to know you more and know the heart behind you and the purpose that you have now to serve and to do all these cool things. It's pretty cool to see where you're going, where you've come from, and to be a part of that. So, man, thanks for that opportunity to be your friend and to get you on the show. I'm excited to see what happens for you in the future, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brad. No, thanks for all you do, man. You inspire me as well. So we are like, two real estate brothers, like, sharing energy and stuff like that. I always learn something new when I talk to you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right, catch you soon, bud.
All right, take care.
That's all for this episode of the Flip for Freedom Show, but we have you covered with even more value. Head on over to the Flip for Freedom private Facebook page and gain free instant access to some incredible resources and Brett himself. There is power in numbers. Need accountability? Help closing your next deal? Or running some numbers? We have you covered. Take advantage of this limited opportunity. Interested in learning how to find, fund, fix, and successfully flip your next home? Looking for a serious dose of accountability? Brett jumps in the trenches with you, making sure you stay on course to hit your goals. Get started today and head on over to www.flipforfreedom.life. Flip for Freedom Coaching offers holistic support wherever you are in your flipping journey. We bring the reinforcement, you get results. We'll catch you next time here on the Flip for Freedom Show.